The SoCon has completed a hat trick in the Volunteer State, moving to 11 with Tennessee Tech, who will become the 45th all-time member of the Southern Conference. First, we'll look at four-year D ratings at the FCS level. Tennessee Tech would rank 65th in FCS, which would put them 7th in the SoCon. The SoCon would have Mercer, Chattanooga, Furman, and Samford all in the top 30. And as a whole, the league would rank 4th behind the MVFC, Big Sky, and Ivy League. The SoCon would be followed by the UAC, CAA, and Patriot League. Next, we'll look at 10-year KenPom and men's basketball using the future alignments of all conferences. The SoCon would rank 16th, in between the Ivy League and the Big West. Furman would lead the SoCon in 10-year KenPom at 94th nationally, while Greensboro and East Tennessee State would be in the top 120, and Wofford in the top 130. Chattanooga would be in the top 150, and Mercer and Samford would be in the top 200. Using the Knight Commission database to look at athletic expenses, the Knight Commission has public schools only. If we look at the now 7 public schools in the SoCon, their athletic expenses, the number all the way at the top above each bar is their overall athletic expenses. East Tennessee State and Chattanooga would lead the way at $39 million, followed by Tennessee Tech, who would be in third at $36.8 million. Now, if we dig into those numbers a little deeper and isolate athletic student aid, which would be the top light gray bar, also isolate facilities and debt service, which would be the middle medium gray bar, and also isolate the excess transfers back, which would be the bottom darker gray bar, that would leave your athletic expenses left over in those colored bars at the bottom. And once you isolate those factors, Chattanooga would lead the way at $15.2 million, followed by East Tennessee State at $12.6 million. Then the Citadel and Tennessee Tech would be virtually tied at $11.5 million. The Department of Education database does keep track of the private schools, their athletic expenses. On the left, you have Furman at nearly $32 million, Wofford $29, Mercer nearly $29, and Samford $22 million. But the Department of Education is not as reliable as the Knight Commission. Now, shifting gears to athletic revenues using that Knight Commission database once again. For overall athletic revenues, which would be the top number above each bar, East Tennessee State and Chattanooga would be at the top at $22.9 and $22.6 million. They would be followed by Tennessee Tech, who would come in third at $20.7 million. Greensboro would come in fourth at $20 million, but remember, Greensboro doesn't have football, which makes their number more impressive relative to the others. And then the Citadel, Western Carolina, and Virginia Military Institute would all be between 18 and 19 million. Now on the left, using the Department of Education database for the private schools, which isn't going to be apples to apples, Furman would be at nearly 32 million, Wofford 29 million, Mercer nearly 29 million, and Samford nearly 25 million. In the Knight Commission database, we can break it down and isolate the student fees in the light gray, the top gray, and as well as institutional support, which would be the bottom gray or darker gray. And then what each school has left over would be in the colored bars at the bottom. And after you isolate those student fees and institutional support, Virginia Military Institute would be in first at $11.3 million, followed by the Citadel at $7.9 million. And then East Tennessee State, Chattanooga, Western Carolina, and Greensboro would all be between $6.5 and $5.5 million, and then Tennessee Tech right above $4 million. Playing around with that Knight Commission database, here's a stat I use termed self-generated revenue, which is just adding up your ticket sales, which would be the bottom bar, your donor contributions, which would be the middle bar, and then advertising, sponsorships, licensing, which would be the top bar. And Virginia Military Institute would have the top self-generated revenue of the public schools at $9 million, backed by $8.6 million in donor contributions in that 23-24 academic year. They would be followed by the Citadel at $6.2 million. Then you'd have East Tennessee State nearly $4 million, Chattanooga $3.5 million, Greensboro $3 million without playing football, which is pretty good. Western Carolina $2.8 million, and Tennessee Tech at $2 million. Looking at football spending in the Knight Commission database, the Citadel would be on top at $5.43 million, but actually all 6 public football playing schools are pretty close together. They're all between $4.4 million and $5.4 million. For the private schools, once again, we'd have to go to the Department of Education database, which is not as accurate as the Knight Commission. And the 4 private schools all have higher football expenses, but keep in mind that the cost of their scholarship money for football is going to be higher, so that's going to play into the difference. Now for men's basketball budgets, they're not tracked by the Knight Commission, so we have to use the Department of Education database. And Furman would have the highest men's basketball budget by far at $4.18 million, followed by Greensboro at $3.13 million. Samford would round out the top three at nearly $2.7 million, and then the remaining 8 schools would be between $1.4 million and $2.4 million. Tennessee Tech will give the SoCon its 7th school with over 6,800 in football attendance. The Citadel had the best attendance last year, over 10,000, followed by East Tennessee State at nearly 10K. What likely was the biggest factor in making Tennessee Tech attractive to the SoCon are their investments into facilities. They're building a new west side of their football stadium for $57.2 million. That's going to have 12 suites, a club level for 588 people, and sections of chairback seating. Tennessee Tech is also building a $15 million football operations center. So add that $15 million to the $57.2 million for the football stadium, and that's over $72 million they're investing into facilities right now. And then about 10 years ago, their basketball arena was renovated with 9,280 new chairback seats. The non-revenue sports travel for Tennessee Tech between the OVC and the SoCon is almost dead even, with travel being slightly better in the SoCon. I did some back-of-the-envelope math, and on average, on a per-school basis, the SoCon was 30 minutes closer to Tennessee Tech than the OVC. While the SoCon footprint is technically a tiny bit closer to Tennessee Tech than the OVC footprint, what Tennessee Tech is really going to enjoy with the SoCon footprint is student recruitment. The states in the SoCon align with the states that Tennessee Tech recruits for students. I could not find any sort of database on the Tennessee Tech website, but looking at a different database that someone put together for every school, which is a little outdated, but back in 2020, the top 5 states for Tennessee Tech high school graduate first-year out-of-state students were Georgia, number 1, and Alabama, number 2. Also, Virginia was number 5, and North Carolina was right behind. And as spillover, Tennessee Tech is going to enjoy the SoCon footprint for football recruiting as well. I could not find a database that tracks the number of players from each state at the FCS level, but a couple years ago I tallied up all the 3, 4, and 5-star recruits in 2022 and 2023 from each state. So we'll use that as kind of a proxy to measure football recruiting strength for each state. And Georgia came in at number 3, Alabama was number 5, Tennessee number 7, Virginia number 9, North Carolina number 12, and South Carolina number 16. So that would mean 2 of the top 5, 4 of the top 10, and 6 of the top 16 states are all in the SoCon for football recruitment. And for men's basketball recruitment, if we look at a database from 2022, the percentage of D1 men's basketball players from every state, Georgia was number 4, North Carolina number 6, Virginia number 12, Tennessee number 14, and South Carolina number 15. So the SoCon footprint would have 2 of the top 6 states and 5 of the top 15 states. A conference realignment evolution timeline for Tennessee Tech. They started varsity intercollegiate athletics over 100 years ago in 1922, and by 1930, they would join the Mississippi Valley Conference. 2 years later, they would join the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Association, the SIAA, and then in 1947, Tennessee Tech would be a co-founder of the Volunteer State Athletic Conference, the VSAC. A couple years after that, Tennessee Tech would join the Ohio Valley Conference, and they would stay in the OVC for over 75 years until 2026, when they will join the SoCon.